On a map of the northeastern United States, find a small town nestled between rolling hills and quiet farmland. The date is December 1888. Christmas is only days away. In this town, as in countless others across the region, families are preparing for the holiday. Wreaths hang on doors. Candles wait in windows. Children count the days until Christmas morning. In the hours ahead, something will change. The temperature, already cold, will begin to fall further. It will keep falling through the evening, through the night, and through the days that follow. By Christmas Eve, the cold will be deeper than anyone in this town can remember. The roads will be impassable, buried under drifts of snow that rise to the windowsills of the lowest houses. The telegraph wires that connect this town to the wider world will hang heavy with ice, then sag, then fall silent. And in every home, families will gather around their stoves and their candles, waiting for a warmth that seems very far away. Tonight, we are going to drift slowly through that frozen Christmas. We will follow the candlelight from window to window. We will listen to the quiet prayers whispered in dark rooms. We will watch as neighbors become family and strangers become friends. And we will rest in the warmth of a story where the smallest light was enough to hold back the cold. This is a calm history for sleep. It is told without rush and without alarm. The details are drawn from the era, from the way small towns lived and worked in the 1880s, from the challenges they faced when winter turned severe. But this is not a story of crisis or panic. It is a story of waiting, of patience, of the quiet strength that ordinary people find when the world outside grows cold. By minute 2, we will be standing in the town square, watching the first bitter wind begin to blow through the streets. By minute 4, we will step inside a small home where a family is lighting their evening candles against the gathering dark. By minute 6, the full weight of the cold will have settled over the town, and we will begin the long, quiet journey through the frozen nights that followed. Throughout this story, certain images will return again and again. Candlelight glowing in frosted windows, the silence between gusts of wind, hands folded in prayer. These are the quiet anchors of the nights ahead. They will keep us company as we move through the story, from the first signs of cold to the slow, grateful return of warmth. This story is told for rest. The pace is slow. The tone is gentle. There is no need to follow every word. If your attention drifts, that is perfectly fine. The story will be here, moving steadily forward whenever you choose to return to it. And if sleep finds you before the end, that is the best outcome of all. So take a moment now to settle in. Adjust your blankets if you need to. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breathing slow. The town square is just ahead, its lampposts glowing faintly through the first flakes of snow. We will step into it together in just a moment. The year is 1888. The place is a small town in the northeastern hills. Christmas is coming, and the cold is already on its way. If you're still settling in, we'll step into the town square now, where the first cold wind is just beginning to blow. The afternoon is quiet, the kind of quiet that settles over a town in the days before Christmas. The sky is pale, a flat gray that promises nothing and reveals nothing. The sun, hidden somewhere behind the clouds, casts no shadows. The light is even and soft, the kind of light that makes the world feel smaller, more intimate, as if the town has drawn a blanket around itself and decided to rest. In the town square, a few figures move between the shops and the church. They walk with their heads bowed, their hands thrust deep into their coat pockets, their breath rising in small white clouds that dissolve almost instantly in the cold air. The general store has a wreath on its door, tied with a ribbon that flutters faintly in the breeze. The church steeple rises above the rooftops, its bell silent now but ready to ring on Christmas morning. The cold is not yet severe, but it is noticeable. People who step outside feel it immediately, a sharpness in the air that was not there yesterday. Farmers who came into town for supplies remark on it to one another, standing in small groups near their wagons, stamping their feet against the frozen ground. Something is different, they say. The cold feels deeper this year. The wind has a bite to it that they do not like. At the edge of town, where the farmland stretches away toward the hills, the animals have begun to behave strangely. Horses stamp and shift in their stalls, unwilling to be still. Cattle cluster together in the far corners of their pastures, pressing close for warmth. Dogs that normally run free through the fields have retreated to porches and barns, curling into tight balls near any source of heat. Even the birds seem quieter than usual, their songs muted, their flights short and hurried. The shopkeepers notice the cold too. In the general store, the proprietor adds more wood to the stove in the corner, watching the flames catch and grow. He adjusts the damper, letting more heat flow into the room, and glances out the window at the sky. The clouds seem lower now, heavier, as if they are pressing down on the town. He has lived here all his life, and he knows this kind of sky. It means snow is coming. It means the temperature will keep falling. In the homes around the square, families are finishing their Christmas preparations. Mothers are baking, filling their kitchens with the scent of bread and cinnamon and molasses. Fathers are chopping wood, stacking it high beside the back doors, enough to last through the holiday and beyond. Children are making decorations from scraps of paper and ribbon, their small hands busy with scissors and paste, their voices bright with anticipation. But even the children notice the cold. They press their faces to the windows, watching the frost creep across the glass, tracing patterns with their fingers in the thin layer of ice. They ask their mothers why the windows are so cold, why the fire needs so much wood, why their breath makes clouds inside the house when they stand near the door. The mothers answer patiently, explaining that winter is simply being winter, that the cold will pass, that Christmas will come regardless. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to fade. The pale gray of the sky deepens to a darker shade, tinged with purple at the edges. The sun, never visible through the clouds, sinks below the horizon, and the temperature drops further. The shopkeepers close their doors earlier than usual. The farmers hurry to finish their errands and start the long drive home. The streets, which were quiet before, become quieter still. In the church, the minister is preparing for the Christmas Eve service. He lights the candles at the altar, one by one, watching the flames steady themselves in the still air. The church is cold, colder than it should be, and he adds more coal to the stove near the back. He thinks about the families who will come tomorrow night, bundled in their warmest clothes, their faces red from the walk through the snow. He hopes the storm will not be too severe. He hopes everyone will be able to make it to the service. The first snowflakes begin to fall just as the last light fades from the sky. They are small and dry, the kind that dust the ground without accumulating, the kind that blow in swirling patterns across the empty streets. But they are only the beginning. Behind them, hidden in the darkness of the clouds, more snow is waiting. More cold is waiting. The town does not know it yet, but the next few days will test everything they have. For now, the streets are empty. The shops are closed. The chimneys release their thin streams of smoke into the cold air, the smoke rising straight for a moment before bending with the first real gust of wind. The candles in the windows begin to glow, one by one, small points of light against the gathering dark. The town settles into evening. Suppers are eaten. Prayers are said. Children are tucked into beds piled high with quilts. And outside, the snow continues to fall, covering the ground, covering the rooftops, covering the world in a blanket of white that grows thicker with every passing hour. The cold has arrived. The long night is beginning. If you're still with us, we'll follow the cold as it deepens through the evening, settling over the town like a heavy blanket of silence. By morning, the snow has changed everything. The roads that yesterday were merely cold are now impassable. The snow lies deep across the land, drifted by the wind into ridges and valleys that bear no resemblance to the familiar paths beneath. The fences that mark the boundaries of farms have disappeared, buried under white. The signposts that guide travelers between towns are invisible, lost in the endless sameness of the snow. In the town, the main street is a canyon of white. The snow has piled against the storefronts, rising halfway up the doors. The sidewalks where they exist are buried completely. Anyone who wants to move from one building to another must wade through drifts that reach to their waists, sometimes to their chests. Every step is an effort. Every journey, no matter how short, is exhausting. The last travelers to reach the town arrived just before the worst of the storm. A mail coach, its horses struggling against the deepening snow, managed to make it to the inn at the edge of the square. The driver, his face red and chapped from the cold, climbed down from his seat with difficulty, his hands so numb he could barely hold the reins. The passengers, 3 of them, stumbled into the warmth of the inn with gratitude written on their faces. They brought news from the road. The way behind them was already closing. Drifts were forming across the highway, higher than a man could see over. The bridges were slick with ice. The horses had nearly refused to continue, their hooves slipping, their breath coming in great white clouds of exhaustion. The driver had made a decision halfway through the journey. This would be the last run until the weather broke. There was no point in risking lives for the sake of a schedule. The innkeeper welcomed the travelers without hesitation. He showed them to rooms near the fire, brought them hot soup and fresh bread, and told them they could stay as long as the storm lasted. Payment could wait. In weather like this, hospitality was not a business transaction. It was simply what neighbors did for one another, even if the neighbors were strangers. At the edge of town, where the road leads out toward the neighboring communities, a farmer stands at the window of his house, watching the white expanse before him. Yesterday, he could see the church steeple of the next village over the hills. Today, he can see nothing but snow and sky, the two blending together at the horizon until it is impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. He is cut off. They all are. The horses in the stable are restless. They shift and stamp, uncomfortable in the cold despite the blankets draped over their backs. The farmer has brought them extra hay, extra water heated on the stove to take the chill off. He speaks to them quietly, his voice low and reassuring, the way he always speaks to animals that are nervous. They will be fine, he tells them. They will all be fine. They just have to wait. In the town, similar scenes are playing out in every stable, every barn, every shed. The animals must be cared for, regardless of the weather. Cows must be milked. Chickens must be fed. The work continues, slower and harder than usual, but it continues. Men bundle themselves in every layer they own and make their way to the outbuildings, their paths through the snow becoming narrow trenches that will freeze solid overnight. The children who would normally play in the streets are kept indoors. Their parents do not need to explain why. They can see the snow piled against the windows, can feel the cold radiating from the glass. They occupy themselves with books and games, with drawing and make-believe, their energy contained but not diminished. Occasionally, a bold child presses their face to the window, watching the empty street, looking for any sign of movement, any break in the endless white. There is none. The town has become an island. The roads are closed in every direction. The mail coach sits in the stable behind the inn, its wheels frozen to the ground, its horses resting. The travelers who arrived last night speak of their journey in hushed voices, describing conditions that grow more severe with each telling. They were lucky to make it, they say, very lucky indeed. As the day wears on, the wind picks up again. It comes in gusts at first, then steadies into a constant pressure, driving the snow sideways, piling it higher against the buildings. The temperature, already low, drops further. The few people who venture outside come back quickly, their faces stung by the cold, their eyes watering. The town understands now. This is not an ordinary winter storm. This is something deeper, something that will not pass quickly. They will have to endure. They will have to rely on one another. They will have to wait. The roads are closed. The travelers are sheltered. The town draws inward, each home a small fortress of warmth against the cold that surrounds it. As the roads close behind the last travelers, we'll turn to the wires that connect this town to the wider world and watch as they too fall silent. In the small building at the corner of Main Street, the telegraph operator sits at his desk, his hand resting on the brass key that connects him to the wider world. The room is cold despite the stove in the corner, and he wears his coat even as he works. The lamp beside him casts a warm circle of light, illuminating the equipment, the notepad, the mug of tea that has long since gone cold. The telegraph is the lifeline of a small town in 1888. It carries news from the cities, messages from family members far away, business correspondence, and weather reports. It is the fastest way to communicate across distances, faster than any horse, faster than any train. When the telegraph works, the town feels connected to the rest of the country. When it falls silent, the town feels very much alone. This morning, the operator arrived early, hopping to send the messages that had accumulated overnight. There were Christmas greetings waiting to be transmitted, orders for goods that shopkeepers needed, and a few personal notes from residents wanting to wish distant relatives a happy holiday. He settled into his chair, warmed his hands by the stove, and placed his fingers on the key. But when he began to tap out the first message, there was no response. The line was dead. He tried again, adjusting the settings, checking the connections. Still nothing. He waited, thinking perhaps the receiving station was temporarily offline. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The silence continued. He knew what had happened without needing to see it. The lines outside, strung between wooden poles that marched away across the hills, had fallen victim to the storm. Ice had accumulated on the wires during the night, coating them in a thick layer that weighed more than the copper could bear. Somewhere along the route, perhaps in many places, the lines had snapped. The poles had bent or broken. The connection was severed. There would be no quick repair. In weather like this, sending line crews out to find and fix the damage was impossible. The drifts were too deep. The cold was too severe. The telegraph would remain silent until the storm passed and conditions improved enough for work parties to venture out. That might be days. It might be longer. The operator wrote a note and posted it on the door of the office. Lines down due to storm. Service suspended until further notice. Then he settled back into his chair, added more coal to the stove, and picked up a book he had been meaning to read. There was nothing else to do. At the post office next door, the postmaster faced a similar situation. The mail coach had arrived last night, but the sacks it carried contained only incoming mail. The outgoing mail, carefully sorted and addressed, sat in its bins, waiting for a coach that would not run. The letters wishing Christmas cheer to family members in other towns would not reach their destinations on time. The packages wrapped in brown paper and tied with string would sit in the back room, gathering dust. The postmaster was a patient man. He had worked this job for many years and had seen storms before. He knew that delays were inevitable, that the mail would eventually move again, that the people waiting for letters would understand. He spent the morning organizing the undelivered mail, making neat piles sorted by destination, ready for the moment when service resumed. Occasionally, someone came to the window to check for letters. The postmaster explained the situation quietly, apologetically, even though there was nothing to apologize for. The weather was not his fault. The broken lines were not his responsibility. But he felt the weight of the isolation nonetheless, felt the disappointment of the people who had hoped for word from loved ones, who had wanted the comfort of connection at Christmas time. In the homes around town, people began to notice the silence. The families who had been expecting telegraph messages or letters realized that none were coming. The shopkeepers who had been waiting for orders from suppliers understood that business would have to wait. The ordinary flow of information that connected this small town to the larger world had stopped. There was nothing to do but accept it. The people of the town were practical. They understood that some things were beyond their control. The storm had cut them off, but it had not changed who they were. They would still celebrate Christmas. They would still care for one another. They would simply do it without knowing what was happening in the world beyond the hills. The telegraph office sat quiet, its equipment still, its lamps burning uselessly. The post office organized mail that would not move, and the town, wrapped in snow and silence, turned inward, finding warmth in what it had rather than longing for what it could not reach. If you're still listening, we'll move indoors now, where families are building their own warmth against the silence outside. As evening falls, the homes of the town become small worlds unto themselves. The outside is a place of cold and wind and endless white, but inside there is warmth, there is light. There is the steady rhythm of life continuing despite the storm. In a modest house on the edge of the square, a mother is lighting candles. She moves from room to room, touching a match to wick after wick, watching the small flames catch and steady. The candles are placed in windows, on mantels, on the kitchen table where the family will soon gather for supper. Their light is soft and golden, pushing back the darkness that presses against the frosted glass. The stove in the corner of the main room radiates heat, the iron sides glowing faintly red from the fire within. The father has been tending it all day, checking the fuel, adjusting the damper, making sure the warmth never falters. They have enough wood stacked beside the back door to last for many days, more if they are careful. He is not worried, but he is vigilant. The stove is the heart of the house. Everything else depends on it. The children have finished their chores for the day. The dishes are washed and put away. The floors are swept. The animals in the small shed behind the house have been fed and watered. Now the children sit near the stove, their faces flushed with warmth, their eyes bright with the particular energy of young people who have been kept indoors too long. The oldest daughter is reading aloud from a book, her voice rising and falling with the story. Her younger siblings listen, some attentively, some with their minds drifting to other things. The youngest, a boy of perhaps 5, is playing with a set of carved wooden animals, walking them across the floor near his mother's feet. The cat, a gray tabby with white paws, watches the wooden animals with the patient interest of a natural hunter. Supper is simple but satisfying. Soup made from vegetables preserved in the cellar, bread baked 2 days ago and still fresh enough to eat, a small portion of salt pork stretched to flavor the whole pot. The family gathers around the table, their heads bowed for a moment of thanks before they eat. The prayer is brief, sincere, spoken by the father in a voice that is quiet and steady. After supper, the dishes are cleared and washed. The children are prepared for bed, their faces and hands scrubbed, their night clothes pulled on, their prayers said kneeling beside their beds. The mother tucks them in one by one, adjusting blankets, kissing foreheads, speaking soft words of comfort against the howl of the wind outside. In other homes around the town, similar scenes unfold. Candles are lit, stoves are tended, meals are shared, children are put to bed. The rituals of domestic life continue, unchanged by the storm, perhaps even strengthened by it. There is comfort in routine, in the repetition of familiar actions, in the knowledge that what has been done 1,000 times before can be done again tonight. The frost on the windows grows thicker as the temperature outside continues to drop. The patterns it forms are intricate and beautiful, ferns and feathers and spirals etched in ice. Some of the children, before they fall asleep, trace these patterns with their fingers, feeling the cold radiating from the glass, marveling at the artwork that winter has created. In the quiet hours after the children are asleep, the adults sit together near the stove. They speak in low voices, not wanting to wake the little ones. They talk about the storm, about how long it might last, about the preparations they have made and the supplies they have stored. They do not speak of worry, though worry may be present. They speak instead of practicalities, of plans, of what will need to be done tomorrow and the day after. The mother takes up her knitting, her needles clicking softly in the quiet room. The father reads the newspaper from 3 days ago, the last one to arrive before the storm, reading it slowly, savoring each article because he does not know when the next one will come. The fire in the stove crackles and pops. The wind outside rises and falls. The candle on the table burns steadily, its flame barely moving in the still air. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticks. The cat has found a warm spot near the stove and curled into a tight ball, its eyes closed, its breathing slow. The house is full of the small sounds of life, the sounds that are easy to miss but that mean everything is as it should be. Outside, the storm continues, but inside there is warmth, there is light, there is family, and that is enough. If your eyes are growing heavy, you can rest here a while, in the warm glow of candlelight, listening to the wind whisper against the windows. When a storm like this strikes, no family stands alone. The people of this town have always known this, have always understood that survival in a harsh winter depends not just on what you have stored in your own cellar, but on what your neighbors have stored in theirs. Community is not a luxury here. It is a necessity. As the second day of the storm dawns, the town begins to organize itself. The minister of the church, a practical man who has lived through many hard winters, opens the building as a warming shelter. The church is solidly built, with thick walls that hold heat and a large stove that can warm the entire sanctuary. Anyone who needs warmth, anyone whose home has grown too cold to bear, is welcome to come. The first to arrive are the elderly and those who live alone. An old woman who lives in a small cabin at the edge of town is helped through the snow by two young men, her arms linked through theirs, her feet barely touching the ground as they carry her more than lead her. An older man who has been a widower for many years shuffles in on his own, his face set with determination, his coat dusted with snow that he does not bother to brush away. The minister greets each arrival with a warm handshake and a seat near the stove. His wife has prepared coffee and tea, simple things that seem like great luxuries when the world outside is so cold. The church fills slowly, not with a crowd but with a gathering of individuals, each one grateful for the warmth, each one relieved to be somewhere other than alone. Throughout the day, neighbors check on neighbors. Men and women bundle themselves against the cold and wade through the drifts, knocking on doors, asking if everything is all right, offering to bring food or fuel or simply to sit and talk for a while. The isolation of the storm is real, but it is not absolute. The connections between people are stronger than the snow. At one house, a young mother with 3 small children opens her door to find her neighbor standing on the step, holding a pot of soup wrapped in towels to keep it warm. The neighbor does not make a fuss about it, does not wait to be thanked. She simply hands over the pot, asks if there is anything else needed, and moves on to the next house. This is how things are done here. This is how they have always been done. At another house, An elderly man who lives alone finds himself with more visitors than he has had in months. A family from down the street has come to check on him, and they end up staying for hours, the children playing on the floor while the adults talk about old times, about previous storms, about the ways the town has changed and the ways it has stayed the same. The old man enjoys the company more than he would admit. The house feels warmer with people in it. The church becomes a hub of activity as the day goes on. People bring food to share, whatever they can spare from their own stores. A table is set up near the entrance, and soon it is covered with bread, preserved vegetables, jars of jam, slices of pie, and other offerings. No one keeps track of who brought what. No one worries about fairness or repayment. The food is simply there, available to anyone who needs it. Lanterns are brought in as the daylight fades, their warm glow adding to the light of the candles already burning throughout the sanctuary. The church windows, which during the day were gray with the reflected light of the storm, now glow from within, visible from the street as beacons of warmth and welcome. The minister leads a prayer of thanks before the evening meal. The words are simple, spoken without pretense or formality. He thanks God for the warmth of the building, for the food on the table, for the neighbors who have come together in a time of need. He asks for protection for those who are still at home, for the animals in the barns, for the travelers who may be stranded somewhere along the roads. His voice is quiet but steady, and the congregation responds with soft amens. As night falls, some of the visitors return to their own homes, navigating the dark streets with lanterns held high. Others remain at the church, those whose homes are too cold, those who have no one waiting for them. The minister and his wife have prepared bedding, blankets and quilts spread on the pews, and the sanctuary takes on the character of a temporary dormitory, quiet and peaceful. The wind outside continues to blow, but inside the church there is only warmth. The stove crackles, the candles flicker, and the people of the town, gathered together against the cold, find comfort in one another's presence. If you're still with this story, we'll follow the lanterns now as they move between homes, carrying warmth from neighbor to neighbor. Even in the midst of a storm, certain work cannot stop. The town depends on people who are willing to venture out into the cold, to keep essential services running, to make sure that needs are met regardless of the weather. These are the quiet heroes of a frozen Christmas, the ones who do their jobs without complaint, without recognition, simply because the work needs to be done. The town doctor is one of these. He is an older man with gray hair and a leather bag that has seen many years of use. When word reaches him that someone is ill, he does not hesitate. He bundles himself in every layer he owns, wraps a scarf around his face until only his eyes are visible, and sets out through the snow. The journey is difficult. The drifts in some places reach to his waist, and he must push through them with a slow, wadding motion that exhausts his legs and leaves him breathless. But he continues, step by step, until he reaches the home where he is needed. The patient is a child with a fever, nothing life-threatening but worrying enough that the parents wanted a professional opinion. The doctor examines the child, prescribes rest and fluids, and offers reassurance. Then he wraps himself up again and makes the long journey back. At the fire station, the volunteer brigade keeps watch. They know that fire is one of the greatest dangers during a cold snap like this. People push their stoves too hard, trying to extract every bit of heat. Chimneys that have not been properly cleaned can catch fire from the accumulated soot. A single spark, landing on a dry wooden floor, can become a disaster in moments. The firefighters check their equipment daily, making sure the pumps are not frozen, the hoses are ready, the horses are fed and rested. They take turns standing watch through the night, sleeping in shifts on the bunks upstairs, ready to respond at a moment's notice. So far, there have been no calls. They hope it stays that way. At the general store, the proprietor has taken on a new responsibility. With supplies limited and the roads closed, he has become the informal rationing authority for the town. He knows what he has in stock, knows what people need, and he does his best to distribute goods fairly. No one gets more than their share. No one is turned away empty-handed. He opens the store for a few hours each day, selling flour and sugar and candles and lamp oil in careful measured amounts. He keeps a ledger, not to collect debts but to keep track of what has gone where, so he can make sure everyone is served. Some customers cannot pay immediately, and he simply makes a note of it, trusting that they will settle up when the storm passes and life returns to normal. The blacksmith keeps his forge burning day and night. The forge is one of the warmest places in town, and he has made it known that anyone who needs to warm up is welcome to step inside. Travelers passing between buildings stop to hold their hands near the heat. Children on errands for their parents pause to thaw their fingers. The blacksmith works steadily through it all, repairing tools, shoeing horses, doing the ordinary work of his trade while also serving as an unofficial warming station. Other workers contribute in smaller ways. The baker works through the night, using his oven to produce bread that he distributes to those who need it. The innkeeper keeps a fire burning in the common room, welcoming anyone who comes through the door. The stable hands tend to the horses and livestock, making sure the animals are fed and watered despite the difficulty of moving through the snow. None of these workers ask for special recognition. None of them consider themselves heroes. They are simply doing what needs to be done, what has always been done in hard times. The town survives because of them, because of their steady, uncomplaining labor, because of their willingness to venture out into the cold when others can stay safely inside. As the day ends and night falls again, The workers return to their own homes or to their posts. The doctor sits by his fire, tired but satisfied. The firefighters keep their watch. The shopkeeper closes his ledger and counts his remaining stock. The blacksmith banks his forge for the night, the coals glowing red in the darkness. The town rests, knowing that tomorrow the work will continue. The essential services will be maintained. The people who keep things running will be there, as they always are, as they always have been. As the workers tend to their duties, we'll return to the smaller, quieter scenes. The children, the animals, the small lives sheltered from the cold. In times like these, it is the small lives that often touch us most deeply. The children who do not fully understand what is happening but sense the change in the world around them. The elders who have seen storms before and know how to wait them out. The animals who depend on human care and offer comfort in return. These are the quiet stories within the larger story, the gentle moments that make a frozen Christmas bearable. In a house near the center of town, a group of children have gathered in the front room, their breath making small clouds in the air despite the stove burning in the corner. They are bored, restless, full of energy that has no outlet. The oldest among them, a girl of perhaps 12, has taken charge. She organizes games, tells stories, keeps the younger ones occupied so the adults can have a moment of peace. One of her games involves the frosted windows. She draws pictures on the glass with her finger, simple shapes that the younger children try to guess. A house, a horse, a Christmas tree. The frost is thick enough that the drawings last for minutes before fading, and the children compete to make the most elaborate designs. Their laughter fills the room, a bright sound against the howl of the wind outside. In another room, the grandmother of the family sits in a rocking chair near the stove. She is wrapped in a quilt made by her own mother many years ago, its colors faded but its warmth undiminished. Her eyes are closed and she might be sleeping, but she is not. She is listening to the sounds of the house, the children's laughter, the crackle of the fire, the murmur of her daughter's voice in the kitchen. When the youngest child, a boy of 4, comes to her with a question, she opens her eyes and smiles. He wants to know if the snow will ever stop. She tells him that it will, that all storms end eventually, that by Christmas morning the world will be bright and white and beautiful. He accepts this without question, the way children accept so many things, and returns to his games. The grandfather of another family has gathered his grandchildren around him for a story. He is a man who loves to talk about the past, about the things he has seen and done, about the winters of his youth that were somehow always colder and deeper than the winters of today. The children listen, half believing, half doubting, but all of them entertained. He tells them about a winter when he was young, when the snow was so deep that they had to dig tunnels from the house to the barn. He describes the cold that was so severe the water in the well froze solid. He remembers the way his mother kept the family warm, the way his father worked tirelessly to care for the animals. The story is probably exaggerated, but it does not matter. What matters is the telling, the connection between generations, the passing down of memory. In the barns and stables around town, the animals wait out the storm with patience. They do not understand what is happening, but they sense the seriousness of it. The horses stand quietly in their stalls, their ears flickering at every gust of wind. The cows cluster together for warmth, their breath rising in clouds that hang in the cold air. The chickens have retreated to the warmest corner of the coop, huddled together in a mass of feathers. The farmers who care for these animals make their rounds despite the weather. They break the ice that forms on water troughs, scatter extra feed, add straw to bedding. They speak softly to the animals as they work, offering reassurance that is understood more in tone than in words. The animals are part of the family too, in their way. They will be cared for. In the houses, the family pets play their own roles. Cats curl near stoves and in laps, their purring a steady accompaniment to the quiet hours. Dogs lie near doors, their ears alert to every sound from outside, their loyalty undiminished by the cold. A canary in a cage near the window sings occasionally, a bright trill that seems to defy the gray world beyond the glass. These small lives, these gentle scenes, are the fabric of a frozen Christmas. They are what people remember when the storm is long past, when the cold is just a story to tell grandchildren. The laughter of children, the wisdom of elders, the steady presence of animals, the warmth of living creatures gathered together against the cold. If you're drifting now, you can stay with these quiet moments, these small lives waiting out the cold together. The ordinary business of a town does not simply stop because of a storm, but it does slow down, adapting to the circumstances, finding new rhythms and new ways of working. The markets, the deliveries, the mail, all the systems that keep a community functioning must adjust to the reality of closed roads and limited supplies. At the general store, the proprietor has become a careful steward of what remains. His shelves, which a week ago were full of goods for the holiday season, are now noticeably emptier. The flour is running low. The sugar is nearly gone. The candles, which everyone needs now more than ever, are being sold one or two at a time, carefully counted, carefully rationed. He opens the store for only a few hours each day, partly to conserve the fuel needed to heat the building and partly to manage the flow of customers. When people come, they wait patiently in line, stamping their feet against the cold, making small talk about the weather and the storm and the prospects for Christmas. They understand the situation. They accept the limitations. They take what they can get and are grateful for it. The baker has had to adjust his work as well. Without fresh supplies of flour and yeast, he can only produce a fraction of his usual output. He bakes through the night, using his oven while the coals are still hot from the day's fire, stretching his ingredients as far as they will go. The bread he produces is simpler than usual, without the butter and eggs that would make it richer, but it is bread nonetheless, and bread is what people need. He distributes what he makes as fairly as he can, setting aside loaves for families he knows are struggling, for the elderly who cannot easily come to his shop, for the travelers stranded at the inn. He asks for payment when people can afford it and shrugs when they cannot. This is not the time for strict accounts. This is the time for doing what is right. At the post office, the postmaster has organized the undelivered mail into neat stacks, sorted by destination and date. There is nothing else he can do with it until the roads open and the mail coaches run again. He spends his days behind the counter, answering questions from townspeople who come hopping for letters that have not arrived, explaining the situation as gently as he can. Some people come just to check, even though they know the answer. The act of asking, of maintaining the routine of visiting the post office, provides a kind of comfort. The postmaster understands this. He treats each visitor with patience, offers what news he has about the weather and the roads, and wishes them well as they leave. The delivery man, who normally makes rounds to farms and homes outside the town center, has suspended his operations entirely. His cart sits in the barn, covered with a layer of snow that grows deeper each day. His horse rests in the stable, grateful for the break from labor. The deliveries will resume when conditions allow. Until then, there is nothing to be done. In the absence of normal commerce, a different kind of economy has emerged. Neighbors trade with neighbors, exchanging what they have for what they need. A family with extra flour trades with a family that has extra salt. A household with too much firewood shares with one that is running low. These exchanges are informal, unrecorded, based on trust and mutual need. The transactions happen in doorways and on porches, in brief conversations between people who know each other well. There is no haggling, no bargaining for advantage. The terms are simple. You have something I need, I have something you need, let us help each other. This is the economy of a community under stress, an economy built on relationships rather than prices. As the days pass and the storm continues, the stocks of goods grow lower, but no one goes without. The careful rationing, the informal sharing, the patience of everyone involved, all of it combines to ensure that the essentials are distributed as fairly as possible. No one has plenty, but no one has nothing. The markets are quieter than usual. The deliveries are suspended. The mail waits in its neat stacks. But the town continues to function, adapted to the circumstances, sustained by the cooperation of its people. If your mind is wandering, we'll gently bring it back to the night watches, where lanterns burn through the coldest hours. The coldest hours are the hours after midnight, when the stoves have burned low and the wind seems to blow straight through the walls. These are the hours when someone must stay awake, tending the fire, watching the candles, keeping vigil against the dark. These are the hours of quiet prayer and steady faith, when the dawn seems very far away. In a house on the edge of the square, a father sits alone near the stove. His family is asleep, the children in their beds, his wife under a pile of quilts in the room beyond. He has taken the night watch, as he does every night during the storm. He adds wood to the fire in careful increments, not too much at once, keeping the heat steady. He listens to the wind outside, to the creak of the house settling in the cold, to the soft breathing of his sleeping children. On the table beside him, a single candle burns. Its flame is small but steady, barely flickering in the still air of the room. The candle has been burning all night, one of several that the family keeps lit during these dark hours. The light is meager compared to the darkness outside, but it is enough. It is a sign of life, of warmth, of hope. The father's thoughts drift as he watches the flame. He thinks about the Christmas ahead, about the gifts he has made for his children, about the meal they will share if the storm breaks in time. He thinks about the supplies in the cellar, counting them in his mind, calculating how long they will last. He thinks about the spring that will eventually come, the thaw that will free the roads, the return of warmth that seems so far away tonight. He does not worry exactly. Worry is not productive, but he is aware of the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, the need to keep his family safe, to make sure they have enough. He accepts this weight quietly, as he accepts most things. It is simply what a father does. In other houses around the town, other watchers keep similar vigils. A mother rocks in a chair near the stove, her eyes half closed but not sleeping, alert to any change in the fire or any cry from the children's room. An elderly man sits by the window, watching the snow fall in the darkness, remembering other storms from other years. A young wife, newly married and still learning the rhythms of keeping house, stays up later than she should, fascinated by the shadows the candle throws on the walls. In the church, the minister makes his own rounds. He walks through the sanctuary, checking on the people who have chosen to shelter there for the night. Most are asleep, their faces peaceful in the dim light of the candles. He adjusts a blanket here, adds coal to the stove there, whispers a prayer over each sleeping form. His footsteps are soft on the wooden floor, almost silent. The prayers that rise from the town during these hours are quiet and personal. They are not spoken aloud, not shared with others. They are the private conversations between souls and their Maker, the whispered hopes and fears that find their way into the silence. Some pray for the storm to end. Some pray for the safety of loved ones far away. Some simply pray for the strength to continue, to endure, to make it through to morning. The candles burn steadily through the night. In every window where one is placed, A small glow pushes back against the darkness. From outside, if anyone were there to see, the town would appear as a constellation of tiny lights scattered across the white landscape, each one a sign that someone is awake, someone is watching, someone is keeping faith. As the hours pass, the sky begins to lighten almost imperceptibly. The darkness softens from black to deep blue to gray. The stars, hidden all night behind the clouds, remain invisible, but their absence feels less absolute. Morning is coming. The night watch is nearly over. The father by the stove adds the last of the night's wood and closes the door. His wife stirs in the bedroom, waking to take her turn at the fire. The children sleep on, unaware of the vigil that has been kept on their behalf. The candle on the table gutters and nearly goes out, then steadies again, burning on into the dawn. The night has passed, the morning has come, and the town, warmed by the faith and diligence of its watchers, prepares to face another day. If you're still awake in this quiet, we'll soon turn to the hazards that required careful attention through these frozen nights. A winter storm of this severity brings with it dangers that are easy to underestimate. They are not dramatic dangers, not the kind that announce themselves with noise or spectacle. They are quiet dangers, the kind that develop slowly, that require attention and care to manage, that can be avoided entirely with the right precautions. The people of this town know these dangers well. They have lived with winter all their lives, and they understand how to respect it. The first and most constant concern is fire. It seems strange that fire should be a danger during a cold snap, when every household depends on flames for warmth and survival. But it is precisely this dependence that creates the risk. Stoves are pushed harder than usual, fed more fuel than they were designed to handle. Chimneys that have not been properly cleaned accumulate soot and creosote, which can ignite if the fire burns too hot. A single spark, landing on a dry wooden floor or a stray piece of cloth, can become a disaster in moments. The families of the town take precautions. They keep water nearby, buckets filled and ready, even though the water itself may freeze if left too long. They check their stoves frequently, making sure the dampers are properly adjusted, making sure the fires are burning cleanly. They clear the area around the stoves of anything that might catch fire, pushing furniture back, moving curtains aside, creating a zone of safety around the source of heat. The chimneys are a particular concern. During normal winters, families clean their chimneys regularly, scraping away the buildup that accumulates from burning wood. But a storm like this makes such maintenance difficult. Going up on a snow-covered roof to clean a chimney is dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than the risk of a chimney fire itself. So families do what they can from inside, using long brushes and careful attention to keep the flues as clear as possible. Frostbite is another quiet danger. The cold is severe enough that exposed skin can be damaged within minutes of stepping outside. Fingers and toes are particularly vulnerable, as are ears and noses and cheeks. The people of the town know to cover every inch of exposed skin before venturing out, to wear multiple layers of gloves, to wrap scarves around their faces until only their eyes are visible. When they return inside, they check themselves carefully. Frostbitten skin has a particular appearance, pale and waxy, numb to the touch. If caught early, the damage can be reversed by warming the affected area slowly, gently, not too quickly. Rubbing frostbitten skin with snow, as some old wives' tales suggest, is the worst thing to do. It only makes the damage worse. The people of this town know better. The weight of snow on roofs is another concern that grows with each passing day. Snow is heavier than it appears, especially when it has been falling for days, piling layer upon layer, compacting under its own weight. A roof that was designed to handle a foot of snow may struggle under 3 feet. The beams may creak. The structure may sag. In the worst cases, roofs can collapse entirely, with catastrophic results. The men of the town keep watch on their roofs, going outside when they can to assess the situation. Some climb up to clear the snow, using long-handled rakes or shovels to push the weight off the edges. It is difficult, exhausting work, made more dangerous by the slippery conditions and the risk of falling. But it is necessary work, and it is done without complaint. Frozen pipes are a more domestic concern, but no less important. The water that flows through the pipes of a house can freeze solid if the temperature drops low enough. And when water freezes, it expands, cracking the pipes, causing damage that will not become apparent until the thaw comes and the water begins to flow again. Families wrap their pipes in cloth, in straw, in anything that might provide insulation. They keep a small trickle of water running through the night, the movement helping to prevent freezing. The wells that provide water to the town are also at risk. If the water table freezes deep enough, the wells may stop producing until spring. Families fill containers while they can, storing water in barrels and buckets, keeping it near the stove so it does not freeze. The water in these containers may develop a thin layer of ice on top by morning, but it is still usable, still drinkable, still better than having no water at all. Throughout these precautions, there is no panic. The people of the town move through their hazard prevention routines with calm efficiency, doing what needs to be done because it needs to be done. They have faced winters before. They have managed dangers before. They know that careful attention is the difference between safety and disaster, and they give that attention freely, continuously, without complaint. The stoves are tended, the chimneys are watched, the roofs are cleared, the pipes are wrapped, the precautions are taken, and the town, through its collective diligence, remains safe through another frozen night. As long as the stoves are tended and the precautions hold, we can rest in the knowledge that the coldest hours will pass. There comes a moment in every storm when the worst has passed, even if the end has not yet arrived. It is not a dramatic moment. There is no sudden clearing of the sky, no burst of sunlight through the clouds. It is more subtle than that, a gradual easing, a sense that the pressure is beginning to lift, that the darkness is no longer quite so dark. The people of the town feel it before they can name it. They wake on the morning of the third day and something is different. The wind, which has been howling for what seems like forever, has dropped to a whisper. The snow, which has been falling without pause, has thinned to occasional flakes drifting down from a sky that seems somehow higher, lighter, less oppressive. Inside the houses, the change is subtle but real. The frost on the windows, which has been growing thicker day by day, has stopped advancing. The stoves, which have been struggling to keep the cold at bay, seem to be winning the battle more easily now. The air inside feels warmer, more comfortable, as if the house itself is beginning to relax. The children notice it first. They wake with more energy than they have had in days, restless and eager, sensing that something has shifted. They press their faces to the windows, looking for signs of change, hopping for permission to go outside. Their parents hold them back for now, not quite trusting the calm, but the promise of release is in the air. The adults move through the morning routines with a lighter step. The endless vigilance of the storm is beginning to ease. The constant checking of stoves and candles, the careful rationing of fuel and food, the quiet worry that has underlain every moment, all of it begins to soften, replaced by something that might almost be called hope. In the church, the minister looks out the window at the quiet street. The snow has stopped falling. The wind has dropped. The world outside is still, wrapped in white, waiting. He offers a prayer of thanks, quiet and sincere, for the easing of the storm and the safety of his congregation. He does not assume the danger is past, but he allows himself to feel grateful for the respite. The day passes slowly, peacefully. Families gather near their stoves, talking quietly, playing games, reading from the books that have kept them company through the long nights. The urgency of survival has faded, replaced by a gentler rhythm, a sense that they can afford to rest, to breathe, to simply be. Some families take the opportunity to cook more elaborate meals than they have managed in days. The careful rationing is relaxed, just slightly, just enough to allow for something that feels like a proper dinner. The smell of food fills the houses, mixing with the warmth from the stoves, creating an atmosphere that feels almost festive. As evening falls, the sky clears further. For the first time in days, stars appear, faint pinpricks of light in the deep blue dome above. The moon rises, nearly full, casting a silver glow across the snow-covered landscape. The world outside, which has been a place of danger and discomfort, is transformed into something almost magical, a wonderland of white and silver and shadow. The people of the town step outside just for a moment, just to see. They stand on their porches and in their doorways, wrapped in blankets and coats, gazing up at the stars. The cold is still severe, but it feels different now, cleaner somehow, less threatening. The storm is ending. The worst has passed. They return inside to the warmth of their homes, to the glow of their candles, to the comfort of their families. They sleep more deeply than they have slept in days, their bodies relaxing into the knowledge that the crisis is passing, that tomorrow will be easier than today. The quiet interval has arrived. The storm is not quite over, but its power is broken. The town rests in the peace that follows struggle, grateful for the warmth, grateful for the light, grateful for the simple gift of another day. If sleep is near, you can drift with this hush, as the frozen world outside begins, ever so slowly, to soften. Christmas Eve dawns bright and cold and still. The sky, which has been gray for days, is now a pale, clear blue, stretched from horizon to horizon without a single cloud. The sun rises slowly, its light spilling across the snow-covered landscape, turning the white into gold and pink, and eventually a brilliant, sparkling white that hurts the eyes. In the houses of the town, people wake to a world transformed. The windows, still frosted at the edges, glow with the light of the sun. The rooms, which have been dim with candlelight for days, are flooded with natural brightness. Children run to the windows, pressing their faces to the cold glass, exclaiming at the beauty of the world outside. And it is beautiful. The snow lies deep and smooth across the town, covering the familiar shapes of streets and fences and rooftops in a blanket of white. Icicles hang from eaves and gutters, catching the sunlight and throwing rainbows across the snow. Every branch of every tree is coated in white, bending under the weight but also glittering, sparkling, transformed into something magical. The first to venture outside are the bravest or the most curious. They bundle themselves in every layer they own, wrap their faces in scarves, pull on boots that will soon be filled with snow, and step out their doors into the cold. The first breath takes their breath away, sharp and clean and impossibly cold. But they stand there anyway, gazing at the world, marveling at what the storm has created. The snow is deeper than anyone expected. In some places, the drifts rise to the level of the windowsills. In others, the wind has swept the ground nearly bare, leaving only a thin layer of white over the frozen earth. The paths that were shoveled during the storm are buried again, invisible under the fresh fall of the final night. The first footprints break the perfect surface of the snow. They are small things, really, just depressions in the white, but they feel significant. They are the first signs of human activity in a landscape that has been given over to winter. They mark the beginning of the return to normal life, the first steps in the long process of digging out. Neighbors begin to appear, stepping out of their own doors, waving across the drifts, calling greetings that carry clearly in the cold, still air. Their voices sound different than usual, sharper and cleaner, as if the cold has given them a new clarity. They laugh at the absurdity of the snow, at the drifts that block their doors, at the work that lies ahead. The laughter is a relief, a release of the tension that has built up over the days of the storm. The children are the first to truly embrace the snow. Despite the cold, despite the protests of their parents, they cannot be kept inside. They tumble out into the drifts, sinking up to their waists, their chests, their necks in the white. They throw handfuls of snow at each other, make angels by lying on their backs and moving their arms, begin the foundations of snowmen that will take shape over the coming hours. The adults watch from the doorways, smiling at the children's joy, remembering their own childhoods, their own snow days. They know the work that awaits them, the shoveling and the hauling and the checking of roofs and pipes. But for this moment they simply watch, letting the children have their fun, letting the morning be what it is, a gift of beauty after days of struggle. The sun climbs higher, warming the air by fractions of degrees, not enough to melt the snow, but enough to take the edge off the cold. The icicles begin to drip slowly, one drop at a time, catching the light as they fall. The world feels new, reborn, washed clean by the storm and ready to begin again. It is Christmas Eve. The storm has passed, and the town, emerging from its frozen shelter, steps into the brilliant, sparkling light of a winter morning that seems to promise that anything is possible. If you're still with us, we'll watch as neighbors begin to emerge, checking on each other, beginning the work of reconnection. The work of digging out begins almost immediately. Shovels that have been waiting by back doors are taken up by hands still stiff from the cold. Men and women and older children form teams, working together to clear the paths that will connect the houses of the town once again. The snow is deep and heavy, but the workers are determined, and the progress is steady. The first paths are narrow, barely wide enough for a single person to pass. They connect front doors to the street, back doors to outbuildings, houses to neighbors. The shovelers work with a rhythm, dig and lift and throw, dig and lift and throw. The snow flying in great white arcs that catch the sunlight before settling into new piles on either side of the growing paths. Children who are too young to shovel find other ways to help. They carry buckets of hot coffee or tea to the workers, their small hands wrapped around the warm containers, their faces red with cold and pride. They run messages between houses, slipping through gaps in the snow that the adults cannot fit through, bringing news of who needs help and who has supplies to spare. The church bell rings for the first time since the storm began. Its sound carries across the snow-covered town, clear and bright, announcing that the building is open, that the community is gathering, that the isolation is ending. People pause in their shoveling to listen, to smile, to feel the connection that the bell represents. At the church, the minister stands at the door, greeting each person who arrives. The paths to the building have been cleared by a group of volunteers who arrived at dawn, their shovels ringing against the frozen ground, their breath rising in clouds of white. Now the congregation gathers, smaller than usual but no less fervent, grateful to be together, grateful to be alive. The service is brief but meaningful. The minister speaks of the storm, of the danger, of the community that came together to help one another through the darkness. He speaks of faith and hope, and the light that was kept burning in every window. He speaks of the Christmas that is almost here, the celebration that the storm could not cancel, the joy that persists despite difficulty. After the service, the people linger outside the church, talking in groups, sharing stories of the past few days. They compare notes on the depth of the drifts, the behavior of their animals, the strange beauty of the frost patterns on their windows. They laugh about the inconveniences, the meals that had to be improvised, the nights spent sleeping by the stove. The laughter is a healing thing, a way of processing what they have been through. The paths continue to grow throughout the morning. By noon, the main streets of the town are passable, at least for those on foot. The snow is piled high on either side, creating corridors of white that wind between the buildings. People walk through these corridors, nodding to one another, stopping to talk, relishing the simple pleasure of being able to move freely again. Some begin the longer work of checking on outlying farms and homes. They strap on snowshoes or simply wade through the drifts, determined to make sure that everyone is accounted for, that no one has been forgotten. They bring food and fuel to those who are running low, bring news of the town to those who have been most isolated, bring the comfort of human presence to those who have been alone. By the end of the day, the town is reconnected. The paths are clear. The news has been shared. The community, which drew together during the storm, remains together in its aftermath. The work is not finished. There are still roofs to clear, pipes to check, damage to assess. But the essential thing has been accomplished. The people are no longer alone. As the sun sets on Christmas Eve, the town is alive with activity and connection. Lanterns appear in windows as the light fades. Smoke rises from every chimney. The paths that were carved through the snow are filled with people moving between homes, carrying gifts, carrying food, carrying the warmth of a community that has been tested and has not been found wanting. As paths open and voices return, we'll turn to the small wonders that the frozen world has left behind. In the aftermath of a great storm, there is always beauty. It is a beauty that is easily overlooked in the rush to return to normal, in the urgency of clearing paths and checking damage. But for those who take the time to look, the frozen world offers wonders that are available at no other time, gifts of ice and light that exist only in the days after winter has done its worst. The icicles are perhaps the most obvious wonder. They hang from every eave and gutter, some as thin as fingers, others as thick as arms. They catch the light of the sun and transform it, breaking it into rainbows that shimmer on the snow below. Some icicles have formed in strange shapes, curves and spirals that seem to defy gravity, sculptures created by the dripping of water in extreme cold. The children are fascinated by the icicles. They break them off carefully, the ice cold against their mittened hands, and hold them up to the light, watching the colors dance. They lick them, tasting the pure water that is older than the storm, older than the winter. They use them as swords and wands and magic sticks, their imaginations transforming the ice into whatever their games require. The frost patterns on the windows are another wonder. Each pane of glass has become a canvas, covered with designs of impossible intricacy. Ferns and feathers, stars and spirals, landscapes of ice that seem to depict forests and mountains and seas. The patterns are different on every window, unique creations that will vanish as soon as the glass warms, that exist only in this moment, only for those who take the time to look. Some families trace the patterns with their fingers, following the curves and lines, marveling at the complexity of what the cold has created. Others simply sit and gaze, letting their eyes wander across the frozen designs, finding shapes and images in the random beauty. It is a kind of meditation, a way of being present with the wonder of the world. Outside, the snow itself is transformed by the sunlight. What was gray and threatening during the storm is now brilliant white, so bright that it hurts to look at directly. The surface sparkles with millions of tiny crystals, each one catching the light at a different angle, creating a field of diamonds that stretches as far as the eye can see. The children play in this wonderland with abandon. They build snowmen and snow forts. They make angels and tunnels. They throw snowballs and catch them and throw them again. Their laughter rings across the frozen landscape, a sound that seems to embody the joy of being alive, of having survived, of having a world of white to play in. The adults watch with quieter appreciation. They pause in their work to look at the sky, to feel the sun on their faces, to breathe the cold, clean air. They notice the way the light falls across the snow, the way the shadows are blue rather than gray, the way the world seems somehow more vivid than it was before the storm. Some take walks through the transformed landscape, following the paths that have been cleared, venturing off into the drifts when the paths run out. They see familiar places made unfamiliar by the snow, trees they have known all their lives now bent under white burdens, fences they pass every day now buried up to their top rails. The world they know has become a new world, and there is wonder in the discovery of it. As the day passes and the sun moves across the sky, the light changes and the wonders change with it. The shadows lengthen. The colors deepen. The sparkle of the snow becomes a glow, warm and golden, as the afternoon fades toward evening. The icicles catch the last light of the sun and hold it, glowing like candles against the darkening sky. The small wonders of the aftermath are not permanent. The icicles will melt. The frost will fade. The snow will eventually become ordinary, gray and dirty, compressed by feet and wheels. But for now, in this moment, the world is magical, and those who take the time to see it are rewarded with a beauty that they will remember for the rest of their lives. If you're drifting toward rest, you can simply hold these small wonders: the light on ice, the laughter of children, as you settle deeper into sleep. As the afternoon of Christmas Eve lengthens into evening, the town turns its attention to the celebration that the storm could not prevent. In every home, preparations are underway for the evening meal, the gathering of family, the observance of traditions that have been kept for generations. The meals are simpler than they would have been in a normal year. The supplies that were expected from the cities have not arrived. The special ingredients that were ordered for holiday recipes are sitting in warehouses somewhere, waiting for roads to open. But the people of the town make do with what they have, and what they have is enough. In one house, a mother works in her kitchen, surrounded by her children and her neighbors. They have pooled their resources, combining what each household had stored with what could be shared, creating a feast that is more than any single family could have managed alone. The turkey that was meant for one table will now feed 3 families. The pies that were baked by different hands will all be sampled by everyone. The kitchen is warm with the heat of cooking, fragrant with the smells of roasting meat and baking bread. The women work together, their movements coordinated by years of practice, their conversation flowing easily as they prepare the dishes that will grace the table. Children run in and out, stealing tastes when they can, being shooed away with gentle scolds that carry no real disapproval. In another house, an elderly couple sits by their stove, waiting for the family that will soon arrive. Their children and grandchildren are on their way, wadding through the snow from their own homes, carrying dishes they have prepared, carrying gifts they have wrapped. The elderly couple has set the table with their best dishes, has lit the candles they save for special occasions, has prepared their home to receive the people they love most. When the family arrives, there is warmth in the greetings, embraces that are longer than usual, eyes that are bright with tears of relief and joy. The storm has reminded everyone how fragile life is, how precious the moments of togetherness, how important it is to hold onto the people who matter. The meal that follows is not just food. It is communion, connection, love made tangible in the breaking of bread. At the church, another kind of meal is being prepared. The people who sheltered there during the storm are still present, along with others who have come to join them. The minister's wife and a group of volunteers have organized a community dinner, inviting anyone who would otherwise be alone on Christmas Eve to share in the celebration. The tables in the church hall are laden with contributions from every household that could spare something. There are dishes that represent the different traditions of the families in the town, recipes that have been handed down through generations, foods that carry memories and meanings beyond their ingredients. The people who gather around these tables are not all related by blood, but they are related by community, by the shared experience of the storm, by the bonds that have been formed and strengthened in the days of darkness. Before the meal, the minister offers a prayer. He thanks God for the food, for the warmth, for the people gathered together. He remembers those who are not present, those in other towns who may still be struggling, those who have been affected by the storm in ways that cannot be easily measured. He asks for blessings on the coming year, for peace and prosperity and the continued strength of the community. When the prayer ends, the meal begins. There is conversation and laughter, stories shared and memories invoked. The children sit at their own table, barely able to contain their excitement about the morning to come. The adults eat more slowly, savoring each bite, savoring the company, savoring the simple miracle of being alive and together on Christmas Eve. As the evening deepens, the meals draw to a close. Dishes are washed and put away. Leftovers are wrapped and stored. Children are bundled up for the walk home, their faces flushed with food and warmth and anticipation. The town settles into the quiet of Christmas Eve, the streets empty but the windows glowing, the smoke rising from the chimneys, the peace of the season settling over everything like a blanket of new fallen snow. If your breathing has slowed, we'll let these shared meals and gentle prayers carry you toward the story's peaceful close. Christmas morning dawns clear and bright, the sky a pale blue that deepens as the sun rises higher. The cold is still present, still sharp enough to bite at exposed skin, but it feels different now. It feels like normal winter cold, the kind that can be managed, the kind that does not threaten. The storm has truly passed. In the houses of the town, children wake early, too excited to sleep any longer. They rush to see what has been left for them, the simple gifts that their parents have prepared, the stockings hung by the stoves, the small treasures that represent the love and hope of the season. Their cries of delight ring through the houses, waking anyone who might still be sleeping, filling the morning with joy. The gifts are simpler than usual this year. The packages that were ordered from the cities have not arrived. The special toys and treats that might have been purchased in normal times are not available, but the children do not seem to notice or care. They are delighted with what they have received: homemade dolls and carved animals, mittens knitted by grandmothers, books that have been carefully chosen and wrapped with love. After the excitement of the gifts has settled, the families prepare for church. They dress in their best clothes, the ones that have been saved for special occasions. They bundle up in coats and scarves, knowing that the walk to the church will be cold but manageable. They set out in groups, families joining with neighbors, everyone moving together through the snow-lined streets toward the building where the bell is already ringing. The church is full. Every pew is occupied. People who have not been to services in months are present. People who were stranded in town by the storm, travelers who have become temporary members of the community, sit beside longtime residents. The minister looks out at his congregation with something like awe, humbled by the turnout, grateful for the chance to lead this particular service on this particular day. The service itself is traditional but deeply felt. The hymns are sung with unusual fervor, voices raised in celebration of the season and in gratitude for survival. The prayers are offered with sincerity that comes from having lived through difficulty. The sermon speaks of hope and light, of the child born in a manger, of the promise that even in the darkest nights, the morning will come. After the service, the congregation lingers outside the church, reluctant to separate, enjoying the warmth of community even in the cold air. They exchange Christmas greetings, shake hands, embrace. Children run between the adults, their energy uncontainable, their laughter rising into the clear winter sky. As the day progresses, the normal rhythms of life begin to resume. The general store opens for a few hours, selling goods to those who need them, accepting orders for supplies that will be brought in when the roads are fully clear. The post office opens as well, and the postmaster begins the long process of sorting and delivering the mail that has accumulated during the storm. The roads themselves are being cleared by work crews that have been organizing since dawn. Men with shovels and horses with plows work their way outward from the center of town, opening paths to the neighboring communities, restoring the connections that the storm had severed. By afternoon, the first wagon from the next town over arrives, its driver reporting that the main roads are passable if one is careful. The telegraph lines are being repaired as well. Linemen who have been waiting for conditions to improve are now out on the poles, splicing wires, replacing broken sections, restoring the flow of information that connects the town to the wider world. By evening, the telegraph office is operational again, and messages begin to flow in both directions. News of safety and survival, Christmas greetings delayed but no less heartfelt. The town breathes a collective sigh of relief. The isolation is ending. The normal patterns of life are returning. The crisis has passed. But something has changed. The people of the town look at one another differently now, with a greater appreciation for the bonds that connect them, for the community that sustained them through the darkness. They know, perhaps more clearly than they knew before, that they are not alone, that they depend on one another, that the strength of the community is greater than the strength of any individual. Christmas Day ends quietly, peacefully. Families gather for evening meals, simpler now after the celebration of the night before, but no less meaningful. Children play with their new toys. Adults sit by stoves and fires, talking softly, enjoying the peace. The candles that have been burning all through the storm continue to glow in the windows, signs of hope and life and warmth. The frozen Christmas of 1888 is almost over. The storm has passed. The town has survived. And the memory of these days will be carried forward, told and retold, a reminder of what people can endure when they stand together. As the world begins to move again, we'll gently look back over what these frozen days have taught us. And so we come to the end of this story, this quiet account of a small town and a frozen Christmas. The days we have traveled through together were not easy days. They were days of cold and isolation, of worry and waiting, of darkness that seemed at times as if it might never lift. But they were also days of light. The light of candles in windows glowing against the dark. The light of lanterns carried through the snow, connecting neighbor to neighbor. The light of stoves tended through long nights, keeping families warm against the cold. The light of faith, quiet and steady, burning in hearts that refused to give in to despair. We have seen a town draw together in the face of difficulty. We have seen strangers welcomed into homes, food shared without counting the cost, help offered freely to anyone who needed it. We have seen the essential services of a community maintained by people who did their jobs without complaint, who understood that the work they did was necessary, who found dignity in service. We have watched children play in the frost and elders share their wisdom. We have followed the careful precautions that kept families safe from the hazards of winter. We have witnessed the quiet prayers offered in dark rooms, the vigils kept through the coldest hours, the faith that sustained people when nothing else could. And we have seen the beauty that can emerge from hardship, the icicles catching the light, the frost patterns on the windows, the brilliant white of new fallen snow sparkling in the sun, the laughter of children who found joy in a frozen world, the tears of relief and gratitude when the storm finally passed. This frozen Christmas of 1888 became a memory that the people of the town carried with them for the rest of their lives. They spoke of it in later years, when winters seemed milder, when storms seemed less severe. They told their children and their grandchildren about the cold that fell and fell until it seemed the world might freeze solid, about the way the community came together, about the light that was kept burning in every window. If this story has helped you drift toward rest, then it has served its purpose. The candles that burned through those frozen nights were meant to hold back the dark, and perhaps this story has done something similar for you. Perhaps the warmth we found together in this tale has been your warmth as well. The year was 1888. The place was a small town in the northeastern hills. Christmas came despite the cold, despite the storm, despite everything that winter could throw at the people who celebrated it. and the light that they kept burning in their windows is still burning, in a way, in the telling of the story, in the memory, in the hope that it represents. Rest now. The storm has passed. The dawn has come. And the warmth of that frozen Christmas is yours to carry with you into sleep, into dreams, into whatever morning awaits you. And before you drift off completely, I have a small question for you. Where are you listening from tonight? What city, what time, what moment brought you here? If you feel like sharing, leave a comment below. Tell me if this is your bedtime companion, your commute friend, or your quiet study background. I read every single one, and it means more than you know to hear from you. Now, rest. The story is done. The candles are fading, and wherever you are in the world, I hope sleep finds you gently. Good night. Sleep well. The candles are still glowing. The town is at peace. And the story, like all good stories, will be here whenever you wish to return to it. If you're still awake at this point, you can release the story now and simply rest with the fading glow of candlelight and the echo of quiet prayers.